Every single one of you was a baby once. I know, hard to picture. And every single one of you got fed. That milk came out of a body somehow and ended up in a tiny screaming mouth, and you have never once in your life stopped to wonder how. Why would you? It just happened. Somebody handled it. But sit with me a minute. Picture a woman in a small wooden house in the winter of 1854. Her baby will not feed. Maybe the child is sick. Maybe the child has already died, because back then, children died all the time. But her body does not know that. Her body keeps making milk day after day until she is swollen and feverish and in genuine pain, the kind that doubles you over. And there is no machine on this earth that can help her. So what did she do? Now you're leaning in. Good. Pull up a chair, because this one is a strange little story. Here is the thing about milk that we forget in a world of refrigerators and corner stores. For almost all of human history, if a baby could not get milk, that baby died. There was no formula. There was no backup plan in a can. A mother's body was the entire food supply, and when something went wrong with that supply, it was a life or death emergency every time. The ancients knew this. Walk through a museum and you will find little clay feeding vessels pulled out of graves in ancient Egypt, in ancient Rome, tiny spouted pots that mothers used to dribble milk into infants who could not latch. The Romans had a whole economy of wet nurses, women paid to feed other women's babies, with contracts and wages and reputations. A rich Roman family did not feed their own child. They hired the breast. Think about that for a second. Motherhood has been bought and sold and improvised for thousands of years. And when there was no other woman to call on, and the milk had to come out, people got creative in ways that will make you wince. Because here is the part the museums put in very small print. Before there was any device worth the name, getting milk out of an engorged breast meant one of three things. It meant hands, squeezing and aching for an hour at a time. It meant crude little tools, hollowed glass, animal bladders, anything that could hold a vacuum. Or, and I want you to brace yourself for this one, it meant a mouth. Sometimes a relative, sometimes another woman, sometimes, in the records, a puppy. I am not making that up. Then came the glass. By the 1700s and 1800s, doctors had these things called sucking glasses, little bell-shaped cups you pressed against the breast, and the woman herself had to create the suction with her own mouth through a tube. So she's in pain, she's exhausted, and now she's also trying to be the engine of the machine. Picture it. Slow, awkward, half-working, and you had to do it in a corner like a secret. And these were not comfort items. Nobody owned one. You did not pop down to the store. These were medical tools kept in a doctor's bag, brought out when a woman had what they called a blocked duct or mastitis, an infection that could genuinely kill her, or an inverted nipple the baby could not work with. The device showed up at the worst moment of your week, made of cold, hard glass, and it hurt. It was difficult to clean, which in an age before they understood germs meant it sometimes made things worse. This was not a tool of convenience. It was a tool of desperation. Can you imagine? You're already suffering, and the cure is its own small punishment. So how did we get from that, from glass bells and borrowed mouths, to the quiet little gadget a woman wears under her shirt today and forgets is even running? That is where the story gets good, because it took some genuinely odd people to fix it. It starts with a man named Orwell Needham in New York City. In 1854, he filed the first official American patent for a breast pump. And give the man credit, because he was thinking about the woman. His device used soft rubber instead of brutal glass against the skin, and he designed it, in his own words, so the patient could operate it herself and control how hard it pulled. That had never been the goal before. For 2,000 years, this had been something done to a woman. Needham wanted it to be something she could do for herself. Small idea, enormous idea. After that, the floodgates opened. The late 1800s were a circus of breast pump patents. Inventors filed designs with levers and bellows and pistons and valves. There were crank-operated pumps that looked like little butter churns. There were rubber bulb pumps that, frankly, looked like the horn off an old bicycle and worked about as gently as you'd expect. Everybody had a theory. Almost none of them were comfortable. They were all still chasing the same broken idea, which was suction. Just pull harder, pull and hold. As if a breast were a tube of toothpaste. And then, one of the strangest characters in this whole story walks in. His name was Edward Lasker, and in the early 1920s, he built a mechanical pump that doctors actually praised as a real improvement. Now here's the part I love. Lasker was not a doctor. Edward Lasker was a world-class chess champion. One of the great chess minds of his era sat down and decided to solve the breast pump. And the design lineage he and others were borrowing from? The machines they used to milk dairy cows. Yeah, read that again. The technology getting closer to feeding human babies was, at its root, cow milking equipment. And it caused a real fight at the time, because some doctors did not want women having these at home at all. They wanted the pumps locked away in hospitals, away from ordinary mothers. The audacity. So if you're getting value from this little history lesson, do an old man a favor and subscribe. I dig up the buried stories behind the everyday things you never think about, and I'd love to keep telling them to you. Now, by the 1940s and 50s, a Swedish engineer named Einar Egnell finally asked the question nobody else had bothered to ask. Not how do we pull harder, but what does a baby actually do? And he sat down and studied it, working closely with a nurse who ran a maternity hospital, listening to the women themselves, which was practically a revolutionary act on its own. And he figured out the secret. A baby does not just suck and hold. A baby pulls, releases in a rhythm. The release is the whole point. Constant suction is what you do to a cow. Rhythm, that gentle on and off, that is what you do to a person. In 1956, Egnell wrote down everything he'd learned, and he set the rules that the entire industry still uses today, including a hard limit on how hard a machine is ever allowed to pull, so it could never again become the torture device it used to be. His pump worked beautifully. It also weighed about 40 pounds. 40 pounds. One nutrition expert lovingly called it the Cadillac of breast pumps, partly because it was that good, and partly because it nearly weighed as much as a car. So it stayed in hospitals, this big, serious machine. But the knowledge inside it was the breakthrough. Egnell's work led straight to a company that a man named Ola Larsson founded in Switzerland in 1961 called Medela, still run by that same family today. The science was solved. Now it just had to shrink. And shrink it did. Look at what you have now. In the 1990s, the pumps finally got light enough to carry, so a woman could go back to work and bring her milk supply with her in a bag. In the early 2000s came the hands-free models, so she didn't have to sit there holding cups to her chest like she was operating a switchboard. Then, in 2010, something quietly historic happened in America. The Affordable Care Act made insurance companies cover breast pumps. Cover them. The exact device that for 100 years was a painful prescription handed over at your sickest moment became something the system mails to your door, often for free, before the baby even arrives. And today? Today there are pumps that fit inside a bra. No cords, no tubes, no glass. Nearly silent. A woman can be on a video call, in a meeting, walking through a parking lot, and the thing is just running, and you would never know. It connects to an app on her phone that tracks how much milk, what time, which side. The companies have names like Willow and Elvie now, soft, modern names, and they are sold as technology, as femtech, the way you'd sell a fitness watch. From a borrowed mouth and a cold glass bell, to a computer in your bra that texts you a report. In 170 years. So let me leave you with what's sitting in the room right now, the way I see it from this side of a long life. Part of you is thinking those people were absolutely out of their minds. The puppies, the 40-pound machines, the doctors who wanted to lock the things away. And you're right. It was madness, all of it. But another part of you finally understands something. You know now how that quiet little device in the corner of so many homes came to exist. It wasn't an accident, and it wasn't easy. It took a chess champion, a Swedish engineer who actually bothered to listen, and 2,000 years of women refusing to let their babies starve. And the last part of you, the honest part, is just quietly grateful. Grateful that if you ever stand where that woman stood in 1854, swollen and frightened and out of options, you will not be reaching for a glass bell and a tube. You'll be reaching for something that took the whole human race that long to figure out. We don't notice the things that work. That's the trick of a good invention. It disappears. But somebody bled for every quiet little miracle you ignore. And now you know who.